America as a whole was rocked by Cher in 1971. That was just the surface, though. What she had to go through behind the scenes is unbelievable. A woman who would eventually be deserted by her own children and a child who was raised without love. The other side of this mythology is revealed through never-before-seen private images and unpublished tales. Even her most loyal supporters will cry as she travels from the limelight to the abyss, from the height of celebrity to the depths of loneliness. To find out why Cher's life is unique in the history of music, watch through to the very end. Cher was born in El Centro, California, and her true name is Sherilyn Sarkeesian. Her life was filled with upheaval from a young age. John Sarkeesian, her father, made few contributions to the family and was a habitual drunkard and gambler. Before his daughter could even say the word "Dad," he vanished from her life. Georgia Hall, her mother, was an actress and singer who was always beaten down by life setbacks. Georgia left her addicted husband when Cher was only 10 months old in an attempt to find freedom. Georgia wedded actor John Suthel shortly after, holding on to the shaky hope of starting a family of her own. Los Angeles, however, was not a paradise. While waiting tables at night and auditioning during the day, Georgia managed to find time to take her girls to work as extras on movie sets. Despite being kinder than her first husband, Southall was also unable to overcome the effects of drinking. That marriage ended after 8 years, leaving Georgia on her own once more. Georgia would regret sending her young daughter to an orphanage for the rest of her life after all other options seemed to have been exhausted. It became the initial scar on Cher's soul, the sensation of being abandoned, especially when one is in love. She sighed when she thought back on that period years later, saying, "I learned not to believe in anything for too long." Despite all of that adversity, a spark continued to burn. Cher sought solace in performing in music. After all the boys declined to participate, she stood in front of her class at the age of 10, directed, and sang in the play Oklahoma. She knew then that she could shine without anyone's approval. Audrey Hepburn, the epitome of elegance and grace that Cher aspired to, was her greatest inspiration. She imitated Audrey's mannerisms, voice, and even her stance. Their lives, however, couldn't have been more dissimilar. She was also a fan of women who dared to live true to themselves and break the stereotype were Katharine Hepburn and Davis. They sowed the seed of revolt in her. It appeared that luck had finally favored them when her mother later would Mr. LaPierre, a bank executive. He sent Cher and her half-sister to a private school after adopting them, but Cher felt alienated in that privileged world. Her dyslexia made school a nightmare because she had trouble reading and remembering words. Her classmates remembered her as being really different. Fearless eyes, a deep and distinctive voice, and long black hair. She frequently said she will be a movie star someday. And oddly enough, she was believed. Cher later acknowledged that her self-assurance was merely a front for her fear. She didn't care about grades or school. Her heart was on stage all the time. She chose to leave school at the age of 16. No degree, no money, just a strong faith in fate. She took acting classes in spite of her parents' strong disapproval. She started working odd jobs, such as dancing in nightclubs around Los Angeles, to sustain herself once financial support was cut off. And it was there that fate set up the encounter that would permanently alter her life. Bono Sunani. Sonny was an assistant to the renowned producer Phil Spector in 1962. In order to have a roof over her head after losing her place to reside, Cher resorted to Sonny and asked to work as his maid. Sonny did more than simply open his house. He provided access to the musical realm. He presented her to Spector, who recognized the 16-year-old girl's deep, husky voice right away. Cher started providing backup vocals on studio recordings, contributing her voice to well-known songs by the Ronettes, You've Lost That Love and Feeling, and Be My Baby. Her voice spread far and wide from that small chamber, and Sonny, who was 11 years her senior, became her friend, mentor, and ultimately her first romantic partner. Neither of them realized that Sonny and Cher, one of the most recognizable pairs of the 1960s, would emerge from those modest beginnings. But Cher was just a little girl with shoes tied together with rubber bands, singing into the dark night before the world heard I Got You, Babe, and before she glistened in sparkling costumes. And hoping to be referred to as a star one day, the public abandoned Cher when it was eventually her moment to take the stage as a solo performer. Ringo, I Love You, her debut hit, was produced by Phil Spector, who had enough faith in her. A song that at first glance appeared innocent and lovely, but soon turned into a catastrophe. Her thick, low-pitched voice was rejected by radio stations across America because it sounded like a gay man declaring love to Ringo Starr. It was a harsh blow to the pride of a young lady barely in her 20s, and the first of a run of agonizing setbacks that Cher would have to face before becoming a legend. Her career fluctuated, but what kept Cher alive through the storm wasn't just her voice, it was her incredible fortitude. She was insulted, dismissed, and knocked down, but never destroyed. And the man she loved the most, Sonny Bono, unwittingly put her back where she started when fame finally started to come her way. Cher had returned to performing in cheap clubs and seeing in various audiences through a cloud of cigarette smoke after sparkling nights on television. She never quit up, though. She once remarked, I'm used to being underestimated, but every time I fall, I rise stronger than before. The story of Cher and Sonny started out like a classic love movie, with Cher initially capturing the older man's heart while working as a housekeeper in Sonny's home. In 1964, they were secretly married in Tijuana, Mexico, with no guests, no wedding dress, and just 2 rings engraved with each other's names. For a while, they lived in simple happiness, with Sonny as the organizer. I sang to everyone through his eyes. She later recalled that love and trust helped them find their perfect harmony, but she also remembered that love and talent weren't enough to make America fall for them. When every door at home seemed to close, Cher turned to Sonny and said, "If America doesn't understand us, let the British do." Because of her crippling stage fright, she froze every time she stepped into the spotlight. And they did. The pair gambled on the hazy island of England after leaving the United States with nothing but faith. They made a miracle there with the hit song "I Got You Babe," which became the anthem of a whole generation. The song was about two dreamers holding hands in a world full of doubters, singing about love and belief. However, like all stars that once shone too brightly, their fate soon started to turn. In 1969, they had their first child, Chaz Bono, and they thought that happiness had finally found them. But soon after, that dream started to fall apart. Sonny wrote and Cher starred in a movie called Chastity, which was a complete bust, costing them $500,000 and leaving them $190,000 in debt. Cher would later bitterly admit, "I learned that love doesn't pay the bills." With no other options, they returned to performing in nightclubs. And it was during one of those miserable nights when the two argued on stage after being heckled by the crowd that something miraculous happened. A television executive happened to be in the audience that night and saw in their spat a real funny and magnetic chemistry that TV audiences would fall in love with. Soon after, Sonny and Cher were invited to appear on the MV Griffin Show, and just a few months later, CBS offered them their own program. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour premiered in 1971 and quickly became a nationwide sensation. Every week, tens of millions of Americans tuned in to watch them sing, joke, and banter. A picture-perfect couple in the eyes of the world. But behind the laughter were long nights when Cher sat alone in her dressing room, feeling like a shadow. Later she confessed, "I made the whole country believe Sonny was the perfect husband, but in reality, I was just a puppet in his hands." Unfortunately, Sonny and Cher's separation, officially attributed to irreconcilable differences, marked the end of the sitcom. Cher acknowledged that she had contributed to the public's perception that Sonny was a model husband, but that the reality was very different. She later disclosed that Sonny had used her as a tool and had manipulated her, and that for many years they had not been close as a real married couple. At the time, there were rumors that Sonny even kept the majority of their earnings, but everyone knew that Cher was the real star. Cher once called Sonny an old-fashioned Italian man who was constantly needing to control and dominate women, which almost destroyed her self-esteem. When Cher made the decision to leave the marriage, Sonny threatened her, saying, "America will hate you. You'll never work again." They formally divorced in 1975, and only a week after the two had received their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, 23 years later, Sonny Bono passed away in a tragic skiing accident. Cher sobbed at his funeral, saying, "He was the most unforgettable man of my life." Cher shocked Hollywood by marrying rock musician Greg Allman just a few days later. People said that she wasn't looking for love at the time. She was trying to fill the void left by Sonny, but fate wasn't on her side. 7 days later, Cher filed for divorce, revealing that Greg struggled with drugs and alcohol, something she couldn't save, no matter how much she loved him. Nevertheless, like all complicated love stories, they were reunited a month later. The marriage didn't last long. When Cher and Sonny reunited for the Sonny and Cher Show in 1976, Greg felt deceived and filed for divorce, ending a relationship they had attempted to preserve through music, hope, and love, but which eventually faded into silence. Their joint album, To the Hard Way 1977, was a failure, and both audiences and critics turned their backs on them. By that time, Cher was a blazing superstar, and Greg was battling his inner demons. They formally divorced in 1979, but in the ruins, they had one thing in common: their son, Elijah Blue Allman, the living testament to a brief but sincere chapter in their lives. The world couldn't comprehend why a global superstar would fall for a regular man 18 years her junior, but Cher claimed, "He made me feel loved, not admired." Cher had thought her heart was set in stone after years of heartbreak until she met Robert Camille, a young man who worked at a bagel shop. Their relationship erupted into a media frenzy in 1986. Cher watched her love fall apart under the weight of fame once more. In 1989, they broke up, but they never really severed their relationship. Years later, Cher called Robert the only real love of her life. Time may have weakened the romances, but it never diminished Cher's faith in love. The public derisively referred to Robert as Bagel Boy, a nickname that was cruel and contemptuous. Eventually, the media pressure forced him out of the spotlight. "He's a great pilot," she stated with a smile in response to a question about Robert in a 2010 interview. "I was once flown to Jamaica by him. Perhaps genuine love never fades, it simply alters its form." The two never publicly acknowledged their relationship, but Cher once admitted on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen that Tom was among the top 5 of my all-time lovers. That half-joking, half-serious admission captivated people for years, and even though they eventually broke up, they maintained mutual respect and a sincere friendship. Cher was also rumored to have had a romantic relationship with actor Tom Cruise, whom she first met in 1985 when Tom was just 23. Cher was young, impulsive, and charming. Cher's love life has never been quiet. She has been linked to screenwriter Rob Zimmerman, guitarist Richie Sambora, and more recently, music executive Alexander Edwards, who is nearly 40 years younger than her. Many say Cher is forever chasing an ideal love, but she simply smiles and says, "I've never stopped believing in love, no matter how many times it's hurt me." Yet, compared to those fleeting romances, the deepest pain in Cher's life came from within her own family. Her 2 sons, Chaz Bono and Elijah Blue Allman, are the most lasting emotional scars of her journey as a mother. Elijah, her younger son with Greg Allman, inherited both his father's musical talent and his darkness. At just 11 years old, Elijah fell into heroin addiction, a downfall Cher would never forget. She sent him to boarding school, hoping to separate him from his father's influence. But to Elijah, it felt like abandonment. He later said that feeling pushed away by his mother drove him into loneliness and self-destruction. Cher was not invited to the wedding when Elijah grew up and married singer Angie King, a painful rift between mother and son. But Elijah eventually learned to forgive and said he still loves and admires his mother for her strength and resilience. Today, he is the front man of the band Deads, carrying the artistic spirit passed down from both parents. Cher's eldest son, Chaz Bono, the child from her legendary marriage to Sonani Bono, has undergone his own journey of transformation. More than just the son of two stars, Chaz became known for his courage in publicly transitioning and embracing his true identity. He has appeared in American Horror Story, RuPaul's Drag Race, and has become a symbol of bravery and authenticity in the LGBTQ community. The greatest conflict within Cher's family didn't come from fame, but rather from her own son, Chaz Bono, who in the documentary Becoming Chaz detailed his long and painful journey from a confused little girl who never fit into the world of women to a man brave enough to live as his true self. Chaz's childhood was characterized by loneliness, a lack of friends, and a constant struggle between wanting acceptance and feeling like he didn't belong anywhere. Prior to transitioning, he had publicly come out as a lesbian, and he later started his path toward gender transition. Chaz and his half-brother Elijah had a difficult relationship. They grew up in two very different worlds, sharing only one enormous shadow, the shadow named Cher. Even Cher's relationship with Chaz went cold for years. But time has a way of healing wounds, and eventually they both learned how to forgive and love each other again. When the public thinks of Cher, they see an icon of eternal beauty. But if you look closely, you'll see that she's not just a diva, but also a mother who has repeatedly learned how to make amends. She is currently a spokesperson for Keep a Child Alive, an organization that supports children living with HIV/AIDS. She has repeatedly donated millions of dollars from her own pocket, saying that a child in pain should never feel alone. However, what people talk about most about Cher isn't her charity, but rather her plastic surgery. While many celebrities choose to remain silent, Cher is honest, even humorous about fixing a few things that needed it. She once joked on stage, "If you can change something and it makes you happier, why wouldn't you?" She had facelifts, nose jobs, and dental treatment after her initial operation went wrong, but all of this was only the outward manifestation of a much stronger force, an unwavering determination to remain young forever. Cher made people laugh and maybe feel a little sad when she admitted that she can't stand the sound of her own voice. "I don't want to watch what I've done," she said. "I'd rather sing than listen to myself." Cher shared the true secret to her vitality in an interview with The Sun. "I don't drink, I don't do drugs, and I hate watching TV." It may seem simple, but for someone who has survived dozens of world tours and innumerable personal tragedies, it's a discipline forged in steel. It was the fatigue of someone who had poured so much emotion in her performances that she couldn't bear to relive them on screen. But every time Cher sat down the microphone, the world of cinema opened its arms to her. In the 1980s, she turned to acting and immediately proved that her talent extended far beyond music. With Silkwood in 1983 alongside male star, Cher earned a Golden Globe nomination. In 1988, she climbed the Oscar stage, winning Best Actress for Moonrock, a film in which her smile and gaze captivated millions. In the following years, Cher continued to shine in Masked Suspect and later Mamma Mia, proving that at any age she could still make audiences erupt in applause. Entering the new millennium, Cher refused to slow down. Her album Dancing Queen 2018 marked her triumph en route to the Billboard charts, selling over 150,000 copies in its first year. In 2019, she launched her own fragrance, Cher Eau de Cutter, and by 2020, the New York Times named her among the best actors of the year. The world has changed, countless stars have come and gone, but Cher still endures. The Queen of Pop, who is currently 79 years old and lives in her Malibu mansion with a view of the sea and a net worth of over $360 million, is admired more for the fire that still burns in her eyes than for her wealth. Evidence that resiliency, not just voice, is what creates legends. And maybe Cher, the lady who made time bow before her genius, will still be remembered when the last spotlight goes out.